The education sector, because, well, the Minister of Education did address the press. So while they were having their meetings, talked about the cutoff mark for the UTME, and so we'll focus on that as a benchmark for perhaps the standard of education and see what are we doing right this time. But let's put it in perspective. This is how she said it and when she said it.
The demand for university education has continued to increase with the increase in population of applicants, but the number of available spaces in these institutions is not commensurate with the growing number of applicants. This was one of the major issues for discussion at the third Combined Policy Committee meeting on admissions. The Minister of Education, Professor Rufai, opened the meeting with a directive to all institutions to beef up security operations to curb terrorism in tertiary institutions. Before delving into the main issue of the day, the heads of institutions had to determine the new national minimum cutoff mark for the 2012 and 2013 admissions. Last year, the university cutoff mark was 180, while colleges of education and polytechnics was 160.
This is what I want us to now reconsider and discuss. Are we still on this differential, or do we take this examinations?
There was a sharp disagreement over this issue, thus stirring up a debate.
Performance in WAEC and NECO. Not everyone in the 66% that we have here, 160 that we used last year, did not give us enough admissions at the education and polytechnic levels. Why do we want to commit suicide?
When we take this 40% of 400 to be the minimum, depending on the applications per institution, it should be good enough for colleges of education.
This got the support of other heads of institutions. After a debate, it was unanimously agreed that against the backdrop of the last 2012 UTME results, the national minimum cutoff mark would remain unchanged.
Our cutoff mark remains like last year. 160 polytechnics and colleges of education and 180 for universities.
For 2012, many universities could not admit as many students as they advertised, owing to a low carrying capacity of 33%. This year, more students have been encouraged to seek admission in other tertiary institutions to reduce the number of applicants for university education. Gloria Umezuki, Channels Television News.
Well, that's what we're focusing on this morning, and Professor Prof.Osarenmen is here with us. She's a former Commissioner of Education in Edo State. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Well, first and foremost, ever since we're going to discuss this, I've been confused, and I thought maybe it's me because I don't quite connect with that, because I know they used to have over 200, 250, 260 with JAM. Is it because they merged it now? It's now UTME, and then the cutoff is what, 160, 180? Is that what it is really, or is there something more to it that we don't understand?
No, it's 160, 180, and disappointingly so, because we are talking of admitting people that scored less than 50%.
That's over 400?
Is over 400.
160?
160 over 400, 180 over 400.
That's failure, right? If it's over 400.
You are now putting it in proper perspective. But the people out there, the parents and some of the candidates, don't see that as failure. You know, we keep talking about the falling standards of education, and we are inadvertently encouraging the falling standards. By the time you admit a child that scored 180, how is that child going to cope in the system? You are opening avenues for all kinds of manipulations, all kinds of, in quote, fraudulent behaviors. And again, okay, you have said 180. 180 does not guarantee you a place in a university. Why do I say that? We still have infrastructural issues, and carrying capacity must come in. So if a department, for instance, their carrying capacity is 70 students, they must admit 70. Is 180 fine? They have to take the highest 70. So if the highest scorer in that department is 280, for instance, they have to move down until they get the 70 they are looking for.
Okay.
That is just it. So 180, yes, we are celebrating failure and we are institutionalizing failure.
And by the way, I mean, looking at this, one would have thought that by now it's supposed to be going higher and not coming lower, is it?
You know, in Nigeria, most things are in the reverse.
Oh dear.
Yes, is a Nigerian thing. Because I remember before now, minimum used to be over 200. So we are moving down. But again, it is minimum. You cannot go below this. But there are some universities who will not even, their own minimum is 200.
In spite of this?
In spite of this.
So some universities can actually still set, they're allowed to set their minimum, you know, they're still allowed to set their minimums in spite of that.
This is the minimum that's for everybody. You know, we have so many universities.
Yeah.
And these universities are graded as it were. Jekukere University and Uptown University are not the same.
Okay.
Some are out for business, some are out for academics. And
is there a way that the Ministry of Education is going to be enforcing this? Because, I mean, as you rightly pointed out, we were watching the report now. Someone was saying, you know, if we do not maintain a particular figure, last year we almost shot ourselves in the foot because there weren't enough students to admit. And then this year, why we're trying to commit suicide, we heard something like that.
No,
so they decided to retain.
No. That is for people from the colleges of education. And you know, whether we want to accept it or not, many parents, many people in Nigeria today are not interested in their children going to study education. So the few number they have is going to be depleted, they argue.
Okay, that's if they lower the cutoff mark for universities.
If they lower you know, it's the same exam. Yeah, everybody.
UTME.
UTM is the same questions. And then you ask yourself, why would I write the same questions with you and you are lowering the marks for me and not you? And in filling the form, you choose a university, you choose a polytechnic, and you choose a college of education for everybody. How are they going to enforce it? You know, after admission in the universities, you still take it back to JAMB for final ratification. So JAMB will have to check if you met the criteria of selection. Not only the minimum of 160, 180, you also have to talk about the ELDS, catchment area, merit, their percentages assigned to each of this category. They have to cross-check that you have fulfilled all that. And even the 60-40 for science and arts and humanities, but most times you don't even get the 60% for sciences.
You know, usually what happens, what we've noticed over the years, we do know that JAM has come a long way at some point in
1978.
Yes, JAM has come. When it first of all started, everybody knew that you got to the question to the exam hall on examination day, and it was just you, your question paper, and your invigilator, and the environment around you. There was nothing more. You did your exams, and there was a time things degenerated, and people were getting to buy questions, and the system really became very, very corrupt. But as time went on, there was some cleaning up done, so much so that at some point sanity was restored, and we can see that they are also trying to, again, reinforce. It's like there's a constant cleansing of the system, as it were, to make it a lot more difficult. Would you also say that the marks truly reflect, the sanity that's been restored? Because we also know that there was a time when people were always getting ridiculously high figures, 350 over 400, and this year only 2 people got above 300 as their scores from JAMB.
Because there are a lot of checks. They now do biometrics, so no impersonation. Is you and you alone, because you put your fingers, it has to be you that registered for that exam.
Can we say that that's why it's reflecting in the scores, and maybe that's why the scores too are beginning to come down, because they're beginning to reflect the true nature of the true capabilities of our students, as it were?
I want to believe that. And again, you look at, place it against the WAEC result. Is the same thing, because a lot of checks are being put in place. The unscrupulous and the criminal-minded group are getting shrunken by the day. So it's reflecting the quality of students we have in our school system.
Is that not an admission of failure on the system? Because if
we have institutionalized failure, why are you saying admission of failure? We have already institutionalized failure.
Probably it's difficult to understand. Yeah. Sorry, Suleiman. If in one breath we're beginning to see a true picture of what is happening, and in the same breath we're also trying to put figures so that people are not exactly cut off from tertiary education, is it not progress in some way as well?
We can still reflect progress and not necessarily lowering the minimum. Because when you look at it, there are still so many, over 700,000 scored 200 and above. And we've been told that the vacancy we have is only 250. So even if we put it at 200 as the minimum, we will still be able to get candidates.
But you just mentioned the colleges of education.
The colleges of education, you see, the colleges of education is not everybody. That is why I keep saying it. That is why we have serious problem in the education sector. It's not everybody that is built to be a teacher. It's not everybody. But because I can't, and you
so
see,
who are those we find studying in the education department? Who are those that we find there?
The people that will gladly tell you they gave me education.
They gave me. That means they didn't apply to being.
Yes, that is also why we will continue to have problems with the kind of teachers we have. Like now, people applied to study education in the universities, and they may not meet the cutoff. And because they have not met the cutoff, there are people that also did not meet the cutoff in their own areas, in law, mass communication, engineering, medicine, and all that. They will come down to education. If the cutoff, for instance, is maybe 240, let's say 240, and there are people that applied to do education and they scored below 240, they won't be admitted. But there are people that applied to study law but did not meet the cutoff. Maybe cutoff is 260 and they scored 250. And they buy change of course form and come to education. Of course, they will be given priority. They will tell you, after all, is to have a university degree. And
so the passion and the interest is
out
not
of it. There. That is why I believe we have to take the people who have indicated initial interest so that that initial interest could be sustained. And you go to a faculty of education, you may have 7,000 students. And if you use that 7,000 figure to plan the number of teachers you are going to have in your schools in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, that we are preparing this number of teachers, but at the end of the day, not up to 10% of them will go to the school system. So you have invested in some people being trained as teachers.
Yes.
But they will not go to the teaching profession.
I actually wanted us to look at that other issue you highlighted with a moment ago, telling Chamberlain that about failure, that we have institutionalized failure. And if we say, as a nation, we're over 50 years of nationhood, and JAM has been since the 70s until this very moment. Look at the quote from the minister that the institutions must each observe the admission criteria based on merit, catchment area, and educationally less developed states in accordance with the federal government's guidelines. These are her direct quote. At this point of our nationhood, we still talk about educationally disadvantaged states to the extent that, well, state A could be 200 and state B could just be 140. Why is that?
Not 140.
No, just an example, but always lower than the required
always lower
mark.
Because we have to pull them along. But again, you ask yourself, you give them concession to get into the institution, but nobody gives them concession in the classroom. They face the same things everybody else faces. And for me, why are we still talking about ELDS? With UBE law signed in 2004, with all the activities going on in the education sector, why wouldn't we focus on enhancing? I'm not saying that people should not, don't give any concession.
Yeah, because there should be a way to measure the success or otherwise of what the programs that you put in place.
And you see, when you even talk of ELDS, there are some people now claim to come from ELDS states. Yes. Because I want admission. I will come from so and so state. That is how you see an Ngozi from a Yoruba state. And when you ask, they named me after my father's or my mother's friend. When in actual fact, it's actually Igbo. Or a Yoruba person answering a name in the north. You know, there are some names that they are not from there, but they want admission. Those are the unintended bad behavior we are encouraging through this policy. Because we want to be in the institutions, we are now encouraging people to look for all avenues. We should be talking of improvement in our facilities, improvement, even the people that we consider to be less developed. Why don't we think about developing them? Nobody is born with a less endowed brain. It's the enrichment of the brain, the kind of activities you expose the brain to, that will encourage that. And even the states where we claim that some people are less developed, we have stars coming from such states. So how come we are getting stars from a state that is supposedly less developed? If we are not playing the ostrich, if we are not deceiving ourselves.
So, but looking at, that was supposed to be a policy conference or a policy gathering.
It is a policy issue, but I feel the policy, when it was put up, in the late 70s, early 80s, it has been overtaken by events.
Yeah, but look at that gathering, that event where the cut-off mark was announced, it seemed that there was some form of consultation with the crowd and on the high table.
Because the minister will always carry everybody along.
So is there anything that she could have done differently? I mean, assuming she felt just how you feel now, that we should not go beyond a certain standard, not be only and simply because we want to be able to accommodate as many people as possible. Could she have been able to make that stand?
Accommodate as many people as possible, and they will come and become nuisance. They can't even write correct. No thoroughbred lecturer will tell you that I want substandard students. Because when you read their scripts, it's torture, mental torture for you. You are reading scripts of students in final year that could barely make correct sentences. Let's just manage them. Manage what? And we say the world is a global village, that we have to compete with everybody. And you are telling me to admit somebody that less than 50%, 40% is a pass mark. 160 is like you scored 40 in the 4 papers.
Someone would say that would remain in the realm of idealism, because if she had come up with that, a stance as strong as that, she definitely can run into trouble in, say, her ministry, for instance.
Let's not go there.
I mean, because you've been a commissioner before, and you definitely know the politics also associated even with the Ministry of Education.
She's a very principled woman, I know her. But let's not go there.
But Prof, I mean, if you look at this UTME, and before it became UTME, from your experience, are we doing better with this format than the format we had before now?
For me, I think the UTME is a question of saving parents some money. You buy one form. Because, before, parents will buy JAM form for UME, will buy the poly JAM form, and will also try and rush to the colleges of education, But now is one form. And is also the same exam. Because they are also have all written WAEC or NECO. But the beautiful thing that UTME has done is maximum utilization of ICT. Because within days of the exam, the results are out, which didn't used to be the case. We are doing better in terms of management of the exam.
What about quality of the product?
JAMB does not have students. JAMB is interested in the sanctity of its exam. How do we ensure that what is in the syllabus is reflected in the items that are set for the student for the exam? That they have done very well. The students are coming from all over, and the students will write the exam. And it depends on what the students are able to write. When you are buying the JAM form, they include the syllabus. But the students are preparing for WAEC, so the attention is on the exam, because you need WAEC to actualize whatever happens in JAM. JAM has improved tremendously in terms of the quality and sanctity of the exam. That I must concede. Because all those scary scores that some candidates used to have, we no longer see.
Well, that's the essence of this whole program, because now, after the meeting, let's use the actual word, they retained, because they started with this cutoff point last year, and for them meeting this year to say let's retain the 180, 160, it means we are somehow entrenching what we want to call a failure in our system. How can we reverse this trend so that when they get to meet in 2013, we'll be going back to the era of 200 and above?
It's all a question of this is what we want.
Whether you have it or not.
And everybody cannot have it. We have to face reality. Over about 1.5 or so million wrote JAMB. And how many spaces do we have?
No, but as a Ministry of Education, you cannot say this is just what we want when you haven't exactly put the things in place to be able to get what you want at the end of the day.
We have to break the heads of the students to put knowledge.
Can we say that as a country we've done enough for education system to be able to get students to be able to get above 200 in JAMB?
We have not done enough.
So in fairness to the students, can we now then demand above 200 from them when they finally write JAMB?
We've not done. No, it is not a hard and fast rule the way you are putting it. It's not a yes and no thing. What we have done is okay, but there's ample room for improvement.
A lot of room, in fact.
And that is why I say ample room for improvement. There's ample room for improvement. And we also have to look at the fact that many students today have the wrongest attitude to learning. Have you bothered, maybe after this program, see some secondary school students, give them a paper and let them have a discussion with them and let them summarize the discussion for you? You'll be shocked.
Wow.
Many of them will not capture the essence of your interaction with them. Some that will make attempts, horrible mistakes in terms of spelling, abbreviation. The way we talk is the way they write. I'm going, and we'll just write M. And they write it, and when you write that in an exam situation, of course you will be marked wrong. Because spelling is, you don't abbreviate in the exam.
Well, looks like there's it barely has scratched the surface in terms of improving the standards of education in this country. I mean, a lot really needs to be done, and who knows if the authorities will eventually do what they have to do and not
they are
politics.
trying.
No, but
they are trying,
the results
but we also have
sad.
to try as parents, as students. Parents will go all out looking for exam questions for their children. So what are we talking about? Parents will want to compromise for the sake of their children. Why? And you come out on the telly and you are speaking very nicely how we have to improve education. Improve education when you are killing education.
All right then, Professor.
And when you tell make a child realize that you can pay his or her way through, what motivation does that child have? What is the zeal to study? There's no zeal. Don't worry, my mommy will do it, my daddy will do it.